We're going to start this week's VMware Cloud and AWS Expert Office Hours. Today's session is about your first SDDCs deployed. Now what? Configuration 101. My name is Ricky Perez, and I'm a Cloud Customer Success Architect. And with me, I have my counterpart, Rick Hoffman.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you.
To get this started, we're just going to do a quick series of poll questions. We kind of want to gauge where everyone is in this series. If you don't mind answering these poll questions, and we'll get started. All right. Looks like most people are feeling excellent. It's great to hear.
Perfect. That's good to hear.
So just looks like we have more poll questions. Apologies. All right, it looks like the room is split almost 50-50 of previous attendees and new attendees.
Yeah, welcome to everyone. Yeah, so the third question is if you ever had the chance to actually access the VMware Cloud and AWS environment already. That's an interesting question for every one of us to see where you're at. Oh, again, a 50-50 split. That's interesting. And question number 4 is, have you ever been using NSX on premises, or do you have experience with it? And since there's more people joining, just letting you know that we're currently going through a few polls in advance of the training or the office hours, sorry.
Okay.
So almost 50-50 split again with using NSX on premises and experience or even not. Cool, thanks for letting us know.
Thanks, guys. So today's agenda is configuration 101 on your VMC and AWS SDDC. So we're going to talk about the architecture. We're going to discuss HLM, storage policies. We may possibly, if we have time, do a demo on content libraries and workloads, and then discuss additional add-ons that are offered on the VMC platform. At the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. If you have any questions during our presentation, please post it in the chat and we'll be sure to answer them as we go along. All right, at a high level view, this is what the SDDC architecture looks like. Everything is, of course, deployed on AWS Cloud. If you look on the left-hand side, you see this green box called the Shadow VPC, and this is where your software-defined data center sits. This Shadow VPC, it's owned and managed by VMware. This is not the customer one, but this is where all your management and workload deployments will land in your SDDC. On the right-hand side, you have your customer-owned VPC. This is your AWS account. This is your AWS VPC. We are able to connect to it during the deployment. The purpose of this is if you're using native AWS services, EC2 RDS, we can have connectivity directly from the SDDC to your native AWS space. A few things that you're going to need once you actually deploy your SDDC. First and foremost, you need access to the VMware Cloud Service Portal. You may hear us refer to it as a CSP. This is where the majority of your configurations for your SDDC is done. Administration of users, networking, and connectivity of your VPN, direct connect, and things of this nature. The next thing you're going to need to do is you have to ensure that you provide people with AWS administrator access, or VMC and AWS administrator access. And if your people are going to have access to network and security, they will also need to be added as a network NSX cloud administrator as well. With certain add-ons that you may add within VMC, such as HCX, you're going to have to provision them as an HCX administrator as well if they are to utilize that product. And we'll walk through all of this. So first and foremost, once you log into your cloud services portal, when you begin to provision people access, what you do is you first navigate to the identity and access management page. Here, you're allowed to edit your roles of access for what certain people can have. If you look up top, there's an organizational role, and there's two roles here, organization owner and organization member. The main difference between these two roles is that an owner can invite other people into the CSP, a member cannot. Then from here, you assign what exact roles you want. If you're using HCX, you provision HCX. The ones that we are going to be focusing on today are your VMware Cloud and AWS. If you look here, there's two roles that are typically selected. One is administrator, which gives you full access to the SDDC, except for the NSX tab. The networking and security tab has its own roles and functions that need to be applied to it as well. The only way that you can use the NSX Cloud or NSX Cloud Auditor role, you need to have administrative role to the entire CSP. Once you actually do grant this access, on the right-hand side, you will actually see what the CSP kind of looks like, and you will have access to this tab up top saying network and security if one of these two boxes are checked. Now, once you actually have access to your CSP and you've deployed your SDDC, there are certain things you need to do to actually gain access into your vCenter. First and foremost, you have to open up your firewall rules. When you deploy your SDDC, the firewall rules that are deployed by default on the management gateway are only the bottom three: your ESX outbound rule, your vCenter outbound rule, and your default deny all rule. The first thing you need to do to access it is create two rules for your ESX inbound and your vCenter inbound. Pin these as your destinations, and these vCenter and ESXi are groups that are created by default when you deploy your SDDC. Now, since this is managed by VMware, there are only a limited amount of services that you can select for each role. As you can see here, I've highlighted them all for ESX and vCenter. So you have SSO, HTTPS, and ICMP with an allow. This will allow you to open up your vCenter and begin configuring your environment for your needs. Now, once you have your firewall rules open and you're able to access your vCenter, there's three ways that you can actually access your SDDC. Over the public internet using a public IP. Majority of our customers, we do not see using this. Majority of the time, we see customers doing one of two things. The first one is configuring a VPN to access your vCenter. In order to do this, under the network and security tab, you'll see a VPN section, and we allow you to do two different ones: a route-based VPN or a policy-based VPN. Just for time's sake, I have screenshotted here the information that's needed for your route-based VPN. Typically, you can configure this, you can download the config file, and then you can share it with your on-prem VPN and make sure that everything matches up. With your route-based VPN, one of the things that you will have to provide is your BGP number. By default, every SDDC comes standard with a local ASN of 6500. Now, you are able to edit this to whatever you see fit within the boundaries of your ASNs. Just please note, if you do change this, this changes it for every single VPN connection you have in your SDDC. You cannot select multiple ASN numbers for different VPNs. Unfortunately, that is a limitation of the VMC and AWS, and it's something that just needs to be noted at this. The second way that we kind of allow you, that we do allow you to connect into your SDDC is fairly simple. AWS offers something called Direct Connect. The Direct Connect is a connection that is on the AWS network backbone. It is a high-speed, low-latency connection that we can drop directly into your SDDC through a private VIF. This is a paid service and something that you can set up with AWS, and you can have a connection of a 1 gig or 10 gig connection coming up to your SDDC. We support up to 4 direct connect pipes. Once you actually do configure this on your AWS account, in this section, you will see the information provided of your direct connect in this box here, where it says direct connect interfaces. Once you do see it, there will be an attach button for you to actually attach it to your SDDC. Once you do attach it to your SDDC, it could take up to 10 minutes to configure. And from there, you can access your SDDC through your direct connect instead of through a VPN connection or over the public internet. Now, once you have gone ahead and connected either VPN or your direct connect, the next thing you're going to want to do is set your vCenter access to its private IP address. By default, when your SDDC is deployed, it will be set to resolve through its public IP address. If you're using your public internet to access your SDDC, this is fine to leave it at your public IP address. Once you do connect it to your private network, either through VPN or direct connect, what you would like to do is come back to your cloud service portal, navigate to the settings section. Under the settings sections, your vCenter FQDN has a section where you can edit it, and just a simple drop-down box where you can select either your public or private IP address. Select your private IP address, click save, and from here on out, you can only access your vCenter through its private IP address. Now, kind of went over a lot. So just to reiterate, once you do create your SDDC, set up your identity and access management roles, and you open up your firewall rules, connecting to your SDDC through a private link, either VPN or Direct Connect, will allow you to access your vCenter. Accessing your vCenter is fairly simple. Up in the right-hand corner, you have an Open vCenter button. Once you select that button, this drop-down box will come up. Now, this drop-down box has 3 little boxes where it can, again, you can review the firewall rules. You can see how to connect to the VPN. And it also has what we have the show credentials. When you click show credentials, your default vCenter credentials will populate. Now, cloud admin at vmc.local is the default admin account for VMC. And then under here, you have the default password that comes with your SDDC. Now, one thing to note here, the default password here can be changed to something different than what is shown in this box. A lot of companies, for security reasons, do not want their admin password to be visible to anybody. So we do allow you to actually change your default password. One thing to note here, if you change your default password to a company standard, please note when you do open this up to view it again, it will not change. It will always show the original default password here. So it's very important that if you do change it, you keep that admin password safe and secure, because if you need to retrieve it, there's really no way to do it. You'd have to open up a ticket with VMware, and we'd have to work with you on the back end to kind of reset the admin password for you again. Now, once you have that information, you simply click your Open vCenter button, and it brings you into your vSphere environment. Very similar to what you have on-prem. From here, you would just simply log on with your cloud admin at vmc.local. Plus, the default password that is set up for your SDDC at this time. Click the login and it'll take you straight into vCenter. I'm going to pause for a second and see, is there any questions or comments in the Q&A? Anybody have? No?
Seems to be not the case. Thanks, Ricky.
All right.
Right. So since we know now how to get access to our vCenter server in the cloud environment, there's one thing which almost all customers do want to see and to do on their own, and that is to connect their on-premises vCenters with the cloud vCenter. And we have a functionality which is called hybrid link mode. And with hybrid link mode, you technically just connect your cloud vCenter with your on-premises vCenter so that they reside in the same SSO domain. And this gives you a single pane of glass, as we call it. You've probably heard that term before, and this is also true for VMC on AWS. And what's also interesting is that when you're running the enhanced link mode on premises, this is also giving you the opportunity that you can access those vCenter servers through the cloud vCenter. This is one thing to keep in mind. You won't be able to see your cloud vCenter in your on-premises vCenter server, but you will see it vice versa. So you need to log into your cloud vCenter server to be able to see your on-premises instances. And that's something which is very important, because sometimes we see customers saying, oh, I set everything up, but I can't see it. This is the way you have to actually do it. You need to log into the cloud vCenter, and then you'll be able to see all the inventory in that single vSphere client interface. What's also important and interesting to know is that you can share tags and categories. So when you have, let's say, a VM with a tag on it, and you want to move something across from one vCenter to another, you can still rely on those tags. For example, when you're utilizing several additional functionalities and products like Vera, for example, like vRealize automation, you're using vRealize operations, and you want to follow specific tags for some certain workloads, this can all be shared as well. What's also interesting is that once you have the setup connected, the environments connected in between so that you can move workloads, this can also be done seamlessly as you would do it on premises. It looks pretty much the same, and I will probably, looking at the time, show you that in just a few moments. And also to get connection from the cloud instance, the cloud vCenter towards your on-premises, you can also use the cloud gateway. However, the cloud gateway is a stripped down appliance you have to deploy on premises. And we've seen quite a few customers having some, I don't want to say issues, but some challenges with it. So we always recommend using the native hybrid link mode so that you're avoiding the cloud gateway appliance. Ricky, can you flip over one page, please? Thank you. So for HLM to be working, and I'm only talking about the native HLM and not the gateway one for this very moment, you need to have a few prerequisites, which is, for example, vCenter server has to be at least 6.0 update 3C or 6.5D. So there's some functionalities in there which we rely on, and in former or earlier versions of vCenter server, this is simply not there. Hence, you need to make sure that these versions are installed on premises. But as you all know, vCenter servers can be updated quite easily on premises these days, since they're all appliance-based, so that shouldn't be an issue. Also, you need to have for the SSO domain, your credentials, so that you can add the cloud vCenter to your on-premises environment. And for that, you only need to have a read-only base DN. Obviously, you can have more, but the only one we do need is the read-only base DN one. Obviously, that's also a good thing in regards to security and stuff. And when there's customers having concerns, giving out other passwords, we know that's always the case. So hence, we give that out. And what's the most important thing is, and that's almost true with anything networking, is that you need to make sure that your DNS is set up properly. When your DNS is not set up properly, so that you can't reach the other sites and it's not resolving the names properly, then you will always face issues. We've seen it not only for VMC, but as you can imagine, like on premises as well. So please make sure that if you want to use it, doesn't matter if it's with the Cloud Gateway appliance or HLM native, make sure that it's set up properly. And as you can imagine, we also need some firewall ports to be open. I just copied across the diagrams from our lovely KB to it. There's a few ports and you need to make sure with your networking team that these ports are open. I've seen customers having challenges with their networking team that they are not opening all of the ports, but without those ports being open, there's no way we can actually get it up and running. Next slide, please. Oh, we're already at the storage policies. But I see there's a few questions in the Q&A. So let me see what's up in here.
Yeah, the question was on Active Directory if you needed to be exposed, but you answered it in this next slide.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for the question, David.
And yeah, cool. Perfect. Alrighty. Yeah, so that was, is there any, let me pause here for a second. Is there any more questions around HLM or Cloud Gateway appliance? Oh, one which comes to mind is, for example, with the Cloud Gateway appliance, does VMware take care of updates and upgrades? No, we do not, since you have to deploy it on premises. So since it's on premises on your end, there will be a notification, hey, there's a new version, like with your today's vCenter, please upgrade at your earliest. However, we do not push for updates on that. It's on your side, so it's on premises and not on the cloud, so hence we don't have access to actually update it. That's one thing which came to mind. Cool. Alrighty, so with VMware Cloud and AWS, we are leveraging vSAN as a storage underlay. And with vSAN, we have a concept called storage policies, which you probably have heard of if you had access to a vSAN environment before. But with VMC, there's a few things to keep in mind. For example, we are a cloud service provider, and we need to make sure that your data is secure and safe. And hence, we came up with the idea of having managed storage policies. Storage policies means that depending on your cluster size, we will apply a default policy to your workload so that you're always in line with SLA compliance and availability. Over the last 2 days, I actually have seen a customer who had an issue with a VM where it was set to FTT = 0, which means that there's no redundancy, so you only have one copy of data. And if there's a hardware issue or anything happening, then you have the problem that there's no redundancy, and hence we cannot make sure that this data is still accessible. Also, when you set anything outside of those either managed or recommended policies, you may have the challenge with SLA compliance. So we have an SLA document out there where we state, okay, in which case do we offer 4 nines, 3 nines, etc., so that you're aware of, okay, there's these policies. With the managed ones, it will change, for example, also when you have only a certain amount of nodes, like let's say 4 nodes, and you're increasing your nodes to, let's say 7, there's different policies needed to be compliant with SLA and availability. And when you're using the managed storage policies, it will automatically change those. With that being said, this will take care of your current VMs. When you change anything in here, we always recommend do not change any of the storage policies directly, but rather take a copy or make a clone of it, change that policy, and then attach this particular policy to your VMs. Otherwise, it may be that, let's say you have 100 VMs running on VMC and you change your storage policy, it will automatically take effect and will be applied to all of the VMs. And if you, let's say you had FTT = 1 and then you're going to, let's say FTT = 3, it will start replicating the data 2 more times. And hence there's a lot of load on the environment and you're increasing your footprint in regards to storage. So this is something to keep in mind and to make sure that you're not changing as a policy which has a lot of VMs attached to it. Next slide, please.
Before we do that, one thing to note, as Rick mentioned, the SLAs are tied to our storage policies. If you have an SDDC environment that is between 3 and 5 hosts, the storage policy that will be set here will be a RAID 1, failure to tolerate equals 1. Once we add that 6 hosts or more, storage policies in each cluster that has more than 6 hosts will change to a RAID 6, FTT2. And that's to keep you in compliance with our SLAs. Now that is for non-stretch clusters. If you are provisioning a stretch cluster, it's important to note the storage policy for that will be dual site mirroring and a failure to tolerate equals 1. This is how we protect you in a stretch cluster environment. As Rick mentioned, you are allowed to change and modify the storage policies, and you can set them to something different for your environment needs. But please note, if you do that, then managing the SLA is on the customer and no longer on VMware. So it is definitely important just to remember that fact. And if you look at this screenshot, we only have a single host in our environment. It's the only reason you're seeing failures to tolerate, no data redundancy, because our lab only has 1 host at the time.
Yeah, that's also the reason why you occasionally see different names of SDDCs showing up in the screenshots, because we have to also, take care of the 30-day limit with SDDCs. So we destroy and recreate SDDCs every now and then. So yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Righty. With that, I'd like to, looking at the time, share my screen, Ricky, and to show the actual environment, what it looks like. Since a few of you haven't had the chance to actually see VMware Cloud and AWS itself. So I'm going in here, and I hope that the screen share is working.
It's working.
Righty, perfect. So this is the starting point, as Ricky already showed earlier. And when you hit Open vCenter, it will bring up that login screen, and you will be going into the vCenter server. As you can see, it's only 1 cluster with 1 node. It is a single node environment. It is running for 14 days already. And as you can see here, it is an an ESXi version, which does not match any builds you see on premises. This is something many customers are asking us about. Hey, what's the version you're running on VMC? So this version might always be ahead of what you're running on premises, or have an entirely different build number. So this is something to keep in mind going forward if somebody's asking internally. So you can't match it to any on-premises version today. You can also see that this is the Amazon EC2 instance, and depending on what host type you're using, it will obviously change, i3 or i3en today. We used to have R5, as you've probably heard of, but that's no longer available for purchase. Right, but we've been on the topic of adding storage policies, and also we'd like to show you that you can also add content libraries. For example, there's one which Ricky created already. However, I'd like to create another one, and I'm just calling it office hours. And this is attached to the current vCenter server. And I'm not going to use a local one, but however, I can also use one which is available through other channels. I'm just going to use one which is a public one. We do not recommend using that, however, that it's possible. But this gives you the opportunity to connect it to your on-premises environment and to your on-premises content library, so that you can move or deploy from your own content library into VMC straight away. And yes, I don't want that. And we have to choose the data store in VMC, we can only use the workload data store. We can't use the vSAN data store. This also applies to VMs to deploy. It's always the workload data store. And yep, we're ready to complete, and we finished that one off. So this takes just a moment. It's not the biggest of libraries, and it will just copy them across, and it's coming from an S3 bucket. So that should be pretty fast. Just giving it a second here. Let's hope the demo gods are with us. Yeah, so let's keep it going. Can just show the policies, for example, until that is finished. And this is like the storage policies we spoke about. Sorry, that's the one. That's the wrong one. So you can create your own ones. You can copy, clone. You can use the managed one, and give them names as you wish. So that's fine.
Well, the management ones are just reserved for management VMs.
Yeah, and the demo gods aren't really with us today because it's only at 7% now, but still, let's wait for another moment to see if that's coming up. That's why I like doing live sessions. You never know what to expect. So yeah, usually it took like 2 minutes, but it's the usual. Today it takes a minute longer, it seems. Anything else you have on mind while we are on the vCenter server, Ricky?
Let's see, reviewed storage policies, content libraries.
Or maybe we can jump ahead while we are waiting on that one. So as you can see here, oh, sorry, we wanted to go in here. You can also do add-ons to VMware Cloud and AWS. So there's quite a few. In here, for example, we already have one, which is the NSX Advanced Firewall, which is available since the release 1.15 or M15, as we call it. But there's also HDX available to migrate your workloads. You can leverage site recovery. There's re-realize automation cloud, for example. You can activate them, or in this case, HDX has been enabled already. So we could go in here and open HDX. However, HDX itself is such a magic tool, let's say. It's quite big, and we're thinking about having a separate office hours around that, because it would just, be too much to fit into this 1 hour slot we have today. And so look out for the next potential upcoming office hours that we're going to talk about HDX. And if you like also anything else, so we will have a poll at the end asking you for feedback and topics you would like to see. So that's also good to leave a comment if you want to see more about HDX, site recovery, or anything else. Let's see how the content library is doing. It is stuck at syncing the library. That's interesting. I've never had that before, to be honest, and that's running for 4 minutes already. That's too bad. Yeah, so on that bombshell, I'm afraid that this is not working. This is, again, the demo god's not with me today. I'm very sorry for that. I'm based out of Germany. It is quite warm today. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I stop sharing for the moment.
Yeah, we'll go back to the slides.
Yeah, and go back to the slide then. And I'll keep it open in the background. So maybe it is coming up somewhere soon. And if it does, we can always jump back if time permits. Not a problem.
Okay. As Rick mentioned, we do have add-ons that you can add to your SDDC. Things to note of here, VMware HCX will be included with your SDDC. So you'll be able to migrate your workloads to and from on-prem to the cloud, or even cloud to cloud using HCX. Site Recovery Manager and vRealize Automation Cloud, they are both paid services. In regards specifically to Site Recovery Manager, we do it per a subscription-based per VM protection nowadays. So if your environment has 100 VMs you're going to protect, you would simply select either a 1 or 3-year option and protect your 100 VMs through SRM. There is an option for SRM to do it on demand as well. But again, that's going to be the most costly way to actually protect your workloads. We do also offer, if let's say you do subscribe for 100 VMs and you begin migrating 102 VMs. Those extra 2 VMs will just be built on demand until you add them to your subscription. If you are using Site Recovery Manager from on-prem to VMC, you will not need an SRM license for on-prem. When you actually tie your SRM version on-prem to an SDDC in VMC and AWS, that activation key between the two will count as a license, and no additional license will need to be purchased. Only the subscription of how many VMs you're looking to protect. Rick, anything else that I missed here on the add-ons?
Nope, you covered pretty much everything. Yeah.
Okay. There are additional services that you can add on in your cloud service console. As you can see, you can do cost insight. We do have a VMware marketplace if you want to purchase pre-built VMware items to import into your SDDC. Code Stream, which is now integrated into VMware, VMC and AWS, is also available. Log Insight Cloud and vRealize Network Insight Cloud are two of the more popular add-ons, or I'm sorry, services that we see customers subscribing to. This will allow you obviously to collect all your log information through Log Insight Cloud, or if you want to kind of see how your network traffic's flowing within VMC and when it exits the SDDC, vRealize Network Cloud is definitely one of the options that we see many customers purchasing these days. Okay, well, it looks like we're coming up towards the end. Rick, is the content library demo good, or?
No, it's still not good. However, what we can do is I can share my screen maybe, or you can try to say the.
One second. There, the poll question came up, so
sorry.
If you guys can, please, build the poll questions. We want to see what future items or future topics you would like us to discuss as we start building out these office hours. So if you guys don't mind just filling that out. If you do have a topic that's not listed, we'll ask you to please post it in the chat and we can collect that for you. Apologies, Rick, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's perfectly fine. I mean, this poll, as I was mentioning earlier, is quite interesting for us to see what you as customers are interested to see. And if it's making sense, to invest the time in other topics as well. Yep, and because you cut me up, I mean, there's we made a video of the actual content library and the deployment of a VM from a content library. So we can show that. That's should be in your deck as well.
Okay, so it looks like
back to the poll results. Yeah, HDX, that's a hot topic. On par with VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery, VCDR, and Tanzu and VMC. Oh, that's good to see that there's interest. Yeah, that's certainly something we can look into. And as mentioned, if there's something you want to see, which is not highlighted or mentioned here, please do feel free, put it in chat, and then we can take it from there. That's also fine.
And I'm sorry, you were saying the video is in the presentation?
Yes, should be on slide 26. It's a currently hidden file. So sorry for that. That's live. Oh yeah, so it's unhidden. Cool. Oh, that's something that
I don't know what that was.
Oh, me neither. So yeah, basically, this is what I wanted to show you. Go into the menu, go into the content libraries, and then hit the create. And I named it differently. As you can see, it's just a test. And I was trying to create the office hours one. That's the vCenter server we're using. And we're not using the local one, but the subscribe one. Exact same link as I was trying earlier, but it wasn't going through. And yes, we accept that. We're going for the vCenter, the workload data store, sorry. and we finish it off. And then it usually only takes a few moments, as you can see in the video, and then it's replicating across. And for whatever reason, that wasn't the case when we were doing it live. And when you go to the slide number 7, which is
27.
still hidden. Yep, I just unhid that file. And that's what I wanted to also show, how to create a VM from the content library. Again, it's pretty straightforward. It is the same as you would do it on premises. I'm just using a publicly shared content library for this. And after that, you can see that there's a VM running on VMC. Just choosing the correct data center from that template, giving the VM a name. You can see I'm also choosing a folder for that. You can leave it on the top data center and it will take care of it automatically. However, I was choosing a folder and then onto the cluster. So in case there's more than one node, it will distribute the workload accordingly, same as on premises. Hitting next, pretty straightforward. Workload data store again, because that's the only one we can use for VMC workload. And then finish it off. Oh, actually, we need to give it a network, obviously. And that's it. Same as on premises, pretty straightforward. You
Awesome.
can see it will create the VM and it should pop up on the workloads folder in just a second. Oh, you went back, or the video done?
No, it's still going.
Okay. It looked frozen on my end, sorry for that.
No worries.
And then you can see it's in the workloads folder. And there's the photo app. Done. Same as on premises. So no magic. Great. Any questions in regards to that or any other questions?
Okay. So one thing we would like to do is just get some of your feedback on the actual sessions. And I believe there will be a couple more poll questions to answer. If you don't mind sticking around and filling those out for us.
I believe you can move on to the next slide as well in regards to the questions. So we make sure.
All right, we got positive feedback. Thanks, guys.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Thank you.
And
Any additional questions?
well, looks like we have. Very kind audience today.
Absolutely. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. All righty.
I believe that's the end of the poll questions. Some additional resources for you guys. We do have the VMware Cloud Tech Zone. We have the customer success community, as well as our VM VMware Cloud and AWS homepage for you guys. If you guys have any questions, you want to continue conversations with myself or Rick, here's our contact information, as well as a link to Rick's blog. That's extremely helpful.
Yeah, especially, the topic we've covered earlier with the SLA compliance. I have a long blog post on that. So make sure that if you have any questions for that, read that blog post. It is very important. And I see that there's been a question coming in. So Ricky, do you want to take that? Or
as an anonymous question came through chat, what are the maximum numbers for VMs, RAM, etc.? So per SDDC, for the number of VMs, I believe roughly around 2,000 VMs per SDDC is what our current configuration maximum does list. What I can do is,
so the easiest way would be to go to the config max for VMware Cloud and AWS. We have a link for that. I believe it's configmax.vmware.com, and in there you could just go and choose VMware Cloud and AWS as a service, and then you can drill down into the SDDC limits and the limits for VM sizes and networking questions and limitations and such, because it always depends on the number of hosts you have and then SDDCs. And yeah.
I just got it. Okay. I don't see any other. Wait. Another honest question came through. I have a remote vSphere 5.5 environment, which I would like to move to VMC. Is this possible? So with vSphere 5.5, it is still possible to migrate that through HCX. You would have to do a later version of HCX. There are 147 version of HCX still supports vSphere 5.5. So you would need that on-prem, and then you can migrate your workloads up until VMC. So it definitely is possible. I'm not sure who asked that question, but if you're still on, please shoot myself or Rick an email, and we can kind of break down what you would actually need to get that done, and at least discuss the requirements that we would recommend for you guys.
Yeah. So there's at least until October, I believe, official support for one HCX release, an earlier release pre 4.0, which can do migrations from 5.5. However, that's going to go away rather soon. So if you have workloads to be migrated off from 5.5, please make sure that you either do it pretty quick, or at least update to a later release like 6.0 update something, which is then again supported with HCX or HLM, even if you have the layer 2 connects or are any connection via VPN in between, to make sure that you can move that workload across. Yeah.
And there was one question. This session is recorded and will be handed out to everyone. Hannah, thank you for answering that as well.
Yeah, perfect.
Any other questions?
If there are any further questions in the future, as Ricky mentioned, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to talk to you. If you want to have a more, even further deep dive into things, or you come up with ideas you want to see or you want to see discussed in a forum like this, please also reach out or leave something in the chat. That's very much appreciated.
With that said, if there's no more questions or comments, we'll give you guys some time back. Thank you very much for attending today's VMware Cloud and AWS office hours.
Yes, thank you very much.